On the morning of March 16, 1968, US soldiers entered a small village in Vietnam called My Lai and killed everyone they found. Not enemy combatants, not armed fighters, women, children, elderly men, and infants. People were dragged from their homes and shot in the head. Families were herded into ditches and machine-gunned. A 2-year-old child was shot trying to crawl away from the bodies of its parents. The killing lasted 4 hours. Between 347 and 504 unarmed civilians died. The United States Army covered it up for over a year. When the truth finally emerged, the officer who ordered the massacre served 3 years under house arrest and was then pardoned. Not a single day in prison. This is My Lai, and it is not just a story about what those soldiers did that morning. It is a story about what an institution does when it needs the truth to disappear. By 1968, American commanders were under enormous pressure to demonstrate progress in Vietnam through a metric called body count, the number of enemy fighters killed. Units that produced high body counts were praised and promoted. Units that produced low body counts were questioned. The pressure to produce bodies, regardless of whether those bodies belonged to actual enemy fighters, filtered down through every level of the military chain of command. Charlie Company arrived in Vietnam in late 1967 and had suffered casualties from booby traps and sniper fire without ever engaging the enemy directly. They were frustrated, frightened, and had been told by their commanding officer that the village of My Lai was a Viet Cong stronghold. They were told that any person found in the village that morning should be considered the enemy. This was false. When Charlie Company entered My Lai, they encountered no armed resistance. Not a single shot was fired at them. What they found was a village of women preparing breakfast, children playing, and old men going about their morning routines. Lieutenant William Calley ordered his men to round up the villagers and began shooting them. Villagers begged for their lives. Some were shot while praying. Women were raped before being killed. A ditch on the edge of the village was filled with hundreds of bodies, many of them still alive when they were pushed in. A helicopter crew, led by Chief Warrant Officer Hugh Thompson, witnessed the massacre from the air and landed between fleeing civilians and advancing soldiers. Thompson ordered his gunner to open fire on American troops if they continued shooting civilians. He evacuated as many survivors as he could and reported what he had seen to his superiors. His report was ignored. The Army's official account reported 128 enemy combatants killed in a successful engagement. No mention of civilians. No mention of the ditch filled with bodies. No mention of the children. The cover-up held for over a year until a soldier named Ron Ridenauer wrote a detailed letter describing what had happened and sent it to 30 members of Congress, the President, the Pentagon, and the State Department. Most ignored it. One congressman ordered an investigation. In November 1969, investigative journalist Seymour Hersh broke the story to the world. Photographs taken during the massacre were published in Life magazine, showing piles of bodies in a ditch, dead women and children, and a village destroyed not by combat, but by systematic execution. The public reaction was explosive, and My Lai became one of the defining moments that turned American public opinion against the Vietnam War. 26 officers and soldiers were initially charged with crimes related to the massacre and cover-up. Only one was convicted. Lieutenant William Calley was found guilty of murdering 22 civilians and sentenced to life imprisonment. 3 days after his conviction, President Nixon ordered him released from prison and placed under house arrest. Cali served 3.5 years under house arrest in his apartment. He was then given a full pardon. No other soldier served any time for the massacre. Hugh Thompson, the helicopter pilot who had tried to stop the killing, was initially investigated by the Army as a troublemaker. He received death threats from fellow Americans for years after the story became public. He was finally awarded the Soldier's Medal for his actions 30 years after the event. He said in interviews that he never fully recovered from what he had witnessed that morning. The village of My Lai was never rebuilt. A memorial stands on the site today, listing the names of the 504 people killed. The youngest was 1 year old. My Lai did not happen because a few bad soldiers went rogue on a single morning. It happened because a system that measured success in body counts created the conditions where killing civilians could feel like following orders. And when the truth emerged, that system closed ranks, covered its tracks, and ensured that only one man faced any consequences. The question My Lai forces you to ask is not whether institutions are capable of covering up atrocities committed in their name. The question is what it means that the soldier who tried to stop it received death threats, and the officer who ordered it received a pardon.